Hello everyone. This is my Frostblade Warden build guide. This build offers good damage, good clear speed, can handle most content, kill all loobers, and run the most of map modifiers. It explodes the entire screen one shot and can freeze lock tough rares or map bosses. However, the core defensive layers are freeze and block. You may die randomly, especially before reaching high investment. Feels like a heart attack at times. Even so, this build is at its strongest in the Mirage League, thanks to the new Shrine Belt. But first, I don't recommend this build for new players looking for a smooth league start, or those who want to learn the game through this build. It is not a foolproof build that will carry you from early game to end game. You'll die a lot before you can afford expensive gears. I don't want to ruin new players' league experience, so I'm not going to explain every single mechanic in great detail. I expect you to already have a basic knowledge of the game's core mechanics. One more thing, if you hate clicking 2 tinctures every 10 seconds, this build is not for you. Start with the core mechanics of the build. Ailments are one of the most important mechanics in this build. A large portion of both our damage and survivability comes from ailments. Since we deal cold damage, mobs will be constantly chilled and frozen. Because of the chill and freeze, we gain a massive amount of fire damage from heat shiver. As we now deal fire damage as well, we apply ignite, but it is useless. Thanks to Oath of Summer from the Warden Ascendancy, we apply 2 scorches instead of ignite. At maximum effect, 2 scorches can lower enemy elemental resistances by 60%. With Yoke of Suffering, all of our elemental damage can also shock enemies. Mobs take up to 50% increased damage from maximum shock. With Oath of Winter, once a mob is frozen, it will remain frozen for at least 2 seconds. Cold Mastery applies a permanent increased damage taken effect to frozen enemies. We don't need this for trash mobs, but it helps ramp up damage when fighting endgame bosses or tough rares. However, ailments do almost nothing if our base damage is too low. Tinctures provide a massive amount of increased damage, attack speed, elemental penetration, and critical strike chance. Warden enabled double tinctures with Enduring Suffusion and Experienced Herbalist. By taking tincture effect nodes on the passive tree and the new Runegraft of the Imbued, we achieve more than double effect from our tinctures. Because we apply 4 different ailments to enemies, we can gain a huge damage boost from the taming before acquiring Nemes. Claw provides life gain on hit, and mana on hit if we use Gemini Claw. To have better sustain, we also get Leech from Cluster Jewels. Mana Leech allows us to use an Imperial Claw without needing life tap support. Combined with Petrified Blood, we have Overleech and can benefit from leech effects. On the defensive side, this build is quite a glass cannon. It relies heavily on freeze and block to survive. Before Svalin, you will die often if you cannot freeze mobs or bosses quickly enough. The build only starts to feel stable after getting Svalin. It may sound bad, but lucky block chances also allow us to survive some extremely dangerous map mods that most other builds cannot handle, such as -52% maximum resistances. Very few builds can survive this kind of harsh map mod. Besides direct damage, dot is a major threat. When in combat, it was fine. However, when dot kills you, there is often nothing left to leech from, like ground effects or on-death effects. To deal with this, we reduce dot damage taken by 55% through Boon of the Mountain in the Alroth bloodline and the major god Arakali. Our ward recovers in just 1 second, and because of block, ward is almost always active. With this setup, I can tank Uber Shaper's beam for a while. Without Boon of the Mountain, I die instantly. There are not many map mods can break our build. For map mods worth mentioning, the first one is monsters have chance to avoid elemental ailments. If you're just doing easy maps, it's fine. However, if you run hard maps with this mod, you'll become ZDPS and die easily because you won't be able to freeze anything. The next one is Elemental Reflect. You can run it safely with Soul of Yugal plus the Elemental Mastery. Avoid it if you don't want to waste points on the Mastery. The third one is Players have reduced chance to block. It's still doable, but you'll die easily. The last one is Monsters cannot be leeched from. You can link Life Tap to Frostblade, or switch to Gemini Claw instead of Imperial Claw to completely ignore this mod. Now here is the Zero to Hero guide, assuming a fresh league start. If you feel anything is missing or unclear, feel free to let me know. Starting from Act 1, buy a two-handed weapon and use Spectral Throw. Link it with Momentum support, and replace Momentum with Volley support later. Link added Cold Damage support if you have 3 Link gear. At level 12, drop the two-handed weapon. Replace Spectral Throw with Poisonous Concoction. Get a shield and socket shield charge, linking it with faster attack support. At this stage, aim for precise technique and point blank on the passive tree. Pick up a heavy belt and lapis amulet in case you need more strength or intelligence. Link faster attack support if you have 4 Link gear. Next, take Dance of Blades and use Blood and Sand to gain Onslaught. If you don't like clicking a button every 4 seconds for Onslaught, you can skip it. At level 28, replace Poisonous Concoction with Explosive Concoction. Do the first lab and pick Oath of Summer. This setup will carry you through to white maps. There are some notable passives that will help you progress through the campaign. It's worth mentioning that these 2 nodes are important because they are the only source of Scorch when you cannot crit due to precise technique. At around level 45, your leveling tree should look like this. After this point, start picking nodes in preparation for switching to Frostblade. Before switching to Frostblade in white maps, your tree will look quite messy like this. Try to buy a random Twin Claw, Rosethorn Tincture, and Prismatic Tincture for 1 chaos each. Alternatively, you can pick one up from the ground and use an Anger, Hatred, or Wrath Essence on the claw. You want one tincture to have any tier of attack speed, and the other to have any tier of penetration. You can roll them with alteration orbs or simply buy the tinctures with the desired mods. Lastly, a Heat Shiver may cost 20 to 30 chaos on league start. Thanks to GGG's buff to ground loot, I had enough raw chaos from the acts. I switched to Frostblade right after finishing the campaign. The tree should look like this after you respec. Also, it was my tree at the end of day 1. You can progress through the Atlas without any major problems, though you will die quite often. When you feel your DPS is falling off, try to buy or craft a better claw and get a 5 Link or 6 Link body armor. A 6 Link setup with a 400 DPS Elemental Gemini Claw is more than enough to carry you to tier 16. Also, try to get better rolls on your tinctures. They increase your DPS significantly. If you feel like you're dying too much, yes, it's normal at this stage. The only thing you can do is try to buy a shield with high attack block chance and spell block chance to die less often. If you have spare chaos, buy cheap cluster jewels with Fuel the Fight or Feed the Fury, and cheap rare jewels with plus 3% to both block chances. Block chance is basically your only defense at this point. It will get much better once you've completed the Uber Lab. Oath of Winter helps you freeze lock bosses. After reaching tier 16, your next goal is to obtain all 4 Void Stones. Maven is the hardest one because it's the most annoying to deal with when your DPS isn't high yet. Save some currency to buy a Yoke of Suffering. Even a bad roll on the yoke increases your DPS a lot thanks to the better shock effect and the extra damage taken debuff on mobs. Alternatively, you can run fortress maps with the Sinistral and Dextral tech. Yoke of Suffering is not that rare, you can easily farm one within 10 maps. And you'll always be earning currency by selling Uber fragments. After Yoke of Suffering, the core of the build is basically complete. You can now start running some farming strategies to progress into the mid-budget stage. Here is a list of gear upgrades to focus on. Roll a better Gemini Claw using Deafening Essences of Hatred. It is usually cheaper than buying a decent one from trade. Roll your tinctures to their top-tier mods. Buy Ward base gloves with life, resistances, accuracy, and an open prefix. Craft damage while leeching on them. Roll pierce and strike targets implicits. These will save you 8 passive points. With the spare points, buy a second cluster jewel with Fuel the Fight, Feed the Fury, and Heavy Hitter. Buy Ward base boots with life, resistances, and craft movement speed. Roll action speed and avoid ailments implicits. Use Greater Eldritch Ichor to roll avoid ailments and bless it to 20%. Apply 6 Tattoo of Arrow Hungry Scout to gain chill and freeze immunity, then switch your major god to Arakali. Buy a pair of Forbidden Jewels for Oath of Summer. Run Sun Knight logbooks to find the boss and spec into Boon of the Mountain in the Alroth bloodline. Buy a better 6-link body armor with high life and resistances, then craft block chance on it. Beware, do not buy a base that requires more than 230 dexterity. You will not have enough dexterity before getting Nemes. Replace one ring with the Taming. Keep one rare ring to help solve your strength and intelligence requirements at this stage. Buy a Stygian Vice with item level 85 and roll it with Deafening Essences of Envy. Aim for high strength and some life. Then socket an Abyssal Jewel with damage. Life is optional because it is much more expensive with life. Lastly, buy Lethal Pride and Thread of Hope. These specific numbers are the good ones to pick. After all these improvements, I assume you will be at least level 95, and your tree should look like this. We are heading to complete this build. I recommend getting these items in the following order, but it is not super strict. First is Svalin and 4 perfect replica Reckless Defense Jewels. You need them to have just enough maximum chance for both attack and spell block. Get Frostblade imbued with level 1 Fortify. Upgrade Multistrike to Greater Multistrike. Get Heat Shiver with the 90% cost implicit so you can replace Herald of Ice with Hatred and link your auras with a level 3 Enlightened support. Remember to take the small reservation node. With a 7 link, the reservation cost is too high if you skip it. Next, craft a Cogwork Ring. It is easy to craft. Use Harvest Reforge Chaos to get Tier 1 Chaos Resist. Fracture the Chaos Resist. Spam Essence of Rage and roll for high tier resist with either dexterity or accuracy. Craft Suffix Cannot Be Change and reforge life. Aim for Tier 1 life. Finally craft Mana Cost on it and apply Dextral Catalyst. Next items are the Claws and Gloves. The Claw is a huge DPS upgrade. If you don't know how to craft them, please check out my crafting guide video. Finally, I recommend buying the Acceleration Shrine Belt before getting Nemes. The Acceleration Shrine buff provides 80% projectile speed. It solves the projectile speed issue when using Nemes. With the Shrine Belt, you can apply Runegraft of the Imbued on a mastery. So the build is basically complete, but there is still some room for improvement. Here is the luxury section. First is the Unspeakable Gifts Cluster Jewel. It doesn't really improve clearing speed, but the sound of explosions is extremely satisfying. Specifically, we use Hatred instead of Herald of Ice. Clearing maps without the explosion sound effect just feels like something is missing. Replace the 2 Reckless Defense Jewels with a good rare jewel and a Watcher's Eye with 3 strong mods for Hatred and Precision. Also spend 6 points to take the Block Mastery at the bottom to regain the block chance we lose from the 2 Reckless Defense Jewels. This gives you 15% to 30% more damage, depending on which nodes you trade for the block cluster. I put the 3 mod Watcher's Eye in the luxury section because it is much rarer than perfect Reckless Defense Jewels. Its price is highly market dependent. Next is a 12% Yoke of Suffering. It can only be obtained by using Volatile Vol on it. This provides 4% more damage compared to a 10% yoke. Another item related to Volatile Vol is Svalin. You can get -8% to maximum block instead of -10%. This means you now take 1 hit every 9 hits instead of every 8 hits. The last luxury item is the Double Shrine Belt. You pay several mirrors just for the MTX. It doesn't improve your character much unless it is paired with a resist shrine, but it is extremely rare. So, that's it for this build. Again, this is not a meta, foolproof, deathless build. I don't recommend it for new players. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment below. See you in the next league. Thanks for watching.